a huge responsibility to build it right. And all of the perspectives that you guys bring are going to enrich the conversation of our community. So thank you. So I will be loading the YouTube link right now. There, it's ready. So we're now live. We'll just wait here for a little bit for the next 15 minutes as we prepare to start. But the live feed just means that, you know, people can join and wait a little bit more informally, and we can either wait or discuss things before we start. Is there anything we need to talk about, Luis, before we let everybody into the room, or do we just wait around for the next 15 minutes?
We don't have all our speakers, right? We don't have Arif as yet.
We just missing Meiji. Yes, that's sure.
Yeah.
Can you name me as a host, Dr. Pineda? And
okay, I'll do that right now.
Yeah, and thank you, Neil. Thank you, Christopher.
There was one thing that we talked about last night or this morning for y'all was the best process of what's the structure. Is it going to be a more conversational style? Is it going to be more presentational?
I would like more conversational. And Alice does a really great job in terms of pulling people into each other's comments and respond to each other instead of just having standalone statements.
Dr. Pineda, you need to make me host, not co-host.
Okay, thank you.
Christopher, is there anything that's off limits from a Google perspective? If I asked you about Sidewalk Labs Toronto, would that be as you know, if the conversation is flowing, is that something that you would be okay with?
Well, unfortunately, they're a separate company from Google. So I have very little insight that I could share other than my personal perspective. And given where we are, I'd rather not share personal perspectives on things.
No problem at all. It's just in the built environment space. It's called the Google City. So it's something that's you know, very widely talked about. Okay.
If I'd had more time, I could have tried to find someone to get a download, but I wasn't able. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries at all. So I'll stick to, you know, so the questions I have is in accordance with the session structure that Luis sent around. So I'll stick to that, right? And see what else comes out of the conversation. Neil,
that'd be great.
Nice to meet you, by the way.
Special Envoy is on, but her audio is not working, it seems. Oh, yeah, her audio is there. Okay. ¿Cómo está, enviada especial?
I just realized I was saying how nice it was to meet you whilst on mute.
That is, you're on mute is like the phrase of 2020.
Yes. Is this thing on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? The other one.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Both for Christopher and for Neil, Alice has just been really phenomenal in terms of mobilizing all the major players that work in the built environment. And Alice and I have been sort of collaborating over the last few years. She also runs the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on Cities and Urbanization, where I'm one of the council members. So she has a really broad perspective on emerging trends and the community that we sort of built in terms of our own COVID response. She was really helpful in helping us understand how COVID was affecting the way cities are being planned and the way that real estate markets are changing and different demands on infrastructure. And also what's great is that she has a personal experience and a passion for advancing disability rights, both in terms of her own profession. She started out becoming an urban planner really to tackle these issues because of her own brother that is a disability activist too. Is that right,
Excellent.
Alice?
That's correct. Yeah, my brother has cerebral palsy, so I've seen growing up how difficult it is for disabled people to, you know, to navigate the built environment, and that's why I became an urban planner.
Excellent. I have a confession to make. I am the child of 2 planners.
Oh wow!
Really, Dean?
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up. You know, both my parents are town planners.
Wow. Okay, so you automatically understand what it takes
So
to navigate the built environment as well.
Just,
some of it, and some of the challenges, you know, and you know, development plans and all of that kind of long-term stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So we found a connection.
the city is an unruly place where a
Yeah.
lot of sort of interests collide. But I think for me, what's important is just unless you're not visible in the city, and if you're not vocal in the city, and if you're not present in sort of the city politics and the city planning, then other people, you know, speak up and you're not heard. So this community that we've been building really is about not only speaking up, but actually giving practical tools to city leaders and giving them a space to learn from each other. And the piece that is relatively new to us that we want to strengthen over this next year is folks like yourselves that are working in the private sector, that are looking at, you know, how your firms engage to provide solutions and to understand opportunities, right, for investments and for solving problems. So I think that's a relatively new conversation we've had. We've had a lot of different companies involved with us since we launched this global campaign. But I think this coming year, kind of strategizing more with some of you and with the World Economic Forum, I think there's an opportunity to really have more momentum in this space. And I feel really proud, though, just before we get started on this officially, I just feel personally proud by how much we've been able to push and influence the public sector and create better laws and commitments and frameworks that are already in place with international agreements, with, you know, declarations, with various regional plans. And also what's also interesting is there is, because the result of that, there is new research and new innovations and new investments and pilot projects that are also being deployed. But I think what we don't have is a way to bring all those together, the commitments together with the innovation, with the case studies and the research. So that's what we're trying to do. So that by 2030, we actually have a good baseline, a good track record of how, you know, a group of people had helped at least make cities better, right? More responsive, and also to see where there's gaps. Alice and I have this conversation quite a bit where we're talking about, you know, resiliency planning or climate change. And how do we build in co-benefits into these conversations of climate change?
And there's
Did
such
you
an
wanna-
opportunity at the moment. You know, a lot of the recovery strategies are focused on a green recovery, a green and just recovery. So there's such an opportunity in this area at the moment. And I think that a lot of the discussions around inclusion, why I personally think this issue is so topical, is because when discussions are happening about inclusion, sometimes disability is not part of that conversation. So it's so important that we're having this conversation this evening.
Well, I'm also really excited with the people that are so committed. I'm going to just jump on, making sure the live stream link and all that is moving forward, and then we've got 5 minutes, and then we'll start the session.
Great.
Okay.
And we've got Arif on.
Yes,
Yep,
Vicky.
hi. Hi, nice to meet you, Alice.
you. I haven't met you before. Very nice to meet you.
You too.
And I see we have Caroline.
We have.
Hi, Caroline.
everyone.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, lovely to see everyone.
Caroline, I was watching you very recently on CNBC on Finding Solutions with
Oh my
Paul
gosh.
Pullman.
Yeah, that
You were
feels like already.
fabulous.
Oh, I can't really remember. It felt like a bit of a whirlwind, but it feels like a long time ago. Time passes strangely in these times.
Yeah, it does.
So how's everybody's days going? Who's on? I can't see who's on screen. Who's here? I can hold on. Let me.
Victor?
I'm gonna put my nose to screen. Hello, Victor.
Hi, dear. It's great to see you. We've got Alice Charles, Neil Milliken.
Hi.
We have
Hello.
Christopher.
Oh, hi, Christopher.
Nice to see you.
You too.
And then we have our colleague from Arup.
Hello.
Maggie.
Hi there.
Hi. Great to see you.
You too.
This is very much a valuable 500 inspired event on cities and the impact that private sector can have on shaping more.
No, we're all here
inclusive-
because of you, Victor, actually, because we're too scared to say no. Okay, so
No.
like, let's call a spade a spade.
I think this is where it gets interesting is we have some really phenomenal personalities and you're always so you bring so much joy to this
Oh,
conversation.
you were trying to think of a word instead of crazy and scary. I think. Yeah.
Loud and obnoxious.
These are power words. These are power words, and we need to embrace them. Without
Oh.
being crazy and scary, nothing gets done.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Christopher, says the man who has great taste in music. So yes, Christopher has
So
great
tell
taste
us
in
about
music.
that.
Oh,
Tell
oh,
us
okay.
about your music taste.
Oh, a couple months ago, or was it a year ago? Caroline got together.
ago.
A year ago, we
Yeah.
spent a lot of time talking about 80s synthesizer pop, goth music, and it just kept on going from there.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be starting the session with such music.
Oh yeah, Depeche Mode, no problem. I'm there.
I had a very unsuccessful record label.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I licensed the music to, it was like drum and bass and stuff like that. So I licensed some music, went to some good parties, but it certainly didn't make me a fortune.
See, Alice, you've got a lot of music. So you've got Neil, who's into music. You got Christopher's into music. I just do the crazy. Victor is film.
Yeah.
We have it
Yeah.
all, really. Could be doing some great production company or some film, actually.
Shape culture. We shape culture.
Exactly.
We can have a sing along.
Well, yeah, I think Neil might be the only one who can sing. Christopher, can you sing?
A bit.
Oh, I bet you can sing.
Not anymore. I studied it in school.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
We need a theme song for
Oh,
the
I did read
Little
that.
campaign.
Yeah, you studied music. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah,
And I
it's
was
been a
wondering-
it's been a good journey.
Yeah, I was wondering how you got from music to accessibility in Google. But
I wasn't very good
that's
at
probably a long
music.
story. Okay.
Same story. failed music career ends up in video and then in accessibility. Yep.
It's a much better day job, trust me.
I don't know about where else you all are in the world, but it is absolutely bucketing down here with rain. Bucketing down. It's like Wuthering
Yes.
Heights.
Could you send some
That
out here
is
to
Ireland,
California?
right?
We're desperate.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Fair point, Christopher. Sorry. Yes, I should be more.
No,
mindful.
enjoy it. Enjoy it. I'll live vicariously through you.
Yeah. I mean, I could do this from the rain if you want, under an umbrella, if you want to feel it, because it is quite the thing.
Oh,
So where is everybody? I'm in Geneva in Switzerland. Victor's in, are you
Berkeley.
still in San Fran? You're in Berkeley?
Yeah.
Christopher?
that's why we have the Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah, I'm in Palo Alto, about an hour south of Victor.
Neil?
I'm just outside London.
Okay. And Caroline? You're obviously in Ireland, it's raining.
Well, actually, that's yes, but no, I'm actually just outside London.
Oh, are you? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In fairness, the UK
Yeah.
rains too, right?
Yeah. No, I'm here, and it was a beautiful day yesterday, and now it's like, oh, crazy. Like, it feels very autumnal because it's
Yeah.
kind of, you know, the light is going from the days, and you realize, oh yes, we're coming into the long dark winter. Winter is coming.
And Mayu, where are you? Are you in London?
In London, yep.
London as well. Okay, so there's the UK and the sort of California region has the majority.
Mayu, do you have a background in music by any chance?
Afraid not, no. I can play Puff the Magic Dragon on the guitar, and that's about it.
Excellent. That's good. That's about as much as I can do. I appreciate music, but I can't do it.
We could have Neil throw some drum and bass on it, and I can do some harmonies. It'll be good.
We can do it, no problem.
Excellent.
Oh, great. Everybody is telling us where they're joining from.
Okay, great.
Fun.
Costa Rica, there's more people in England and Yorkshire.
South Africa, Nepal, Lebanon.
DC, Mexico, yeah. Johannesburg.
If there's any Irish,
Kathmandu.
please shout out. Come on, Ireland.
There is Irish people on this call. That's amazing. Okay, NYC, Kathmandu. I'm really impressed by Kathmandu.
Whoop.
Yeah.
We have a great
Brussels.
community.
Oh, wow. Auckland. What time is it in Auckland?
What are you doing?
They're committed to this conversation.
Oh, somebody
Well,
said Irish descent. Okay, that's acceptable.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Shout out to Tiffany, my friend from San Francisco. She's really fantastic. Well, guys, you can see we have quite a great community of folks that have come together from around the world to hear us speak and tackle some of these things. We are facing so many global challenges, but there's hope. There's obviously hope when people come together. That Sustainable Development Impact Summit, which is really the thing that brought us together today, is an event that is trying to mobilize partnerships to deliver on this ambitious 2030 agenda for sustainable development. And whether they're new technological solutions or new sort of platforms for coordinating action, it really is about making sure that we can have an alignment and an amplification of things that are working. That for the last 5 years or 6 years, I had taken a lot of the work that we've been doing globally to advance disability rights and started to have an engaged conversation specifically around cities, kind of looking at the capacities of local governments to respond to the needs of nearly 550 million people with disabilities that live in cities. This event is part of the 75th anniversary of the UN. And the theme of this anniversary is to shape the future together. This event also is very much in line and in partnership with the UN Special Envoy. And the UN Special Envoy has been advancing this issue as the main leader from the side of the UN Secretary General. So let me just introduce the UN Special Envoy to give us some welcoming remarks, and really welcome her and our other co-organizers, Viable 500, Atos, and the Doha Debates team, for helping us put this event together. So the co-organizers, thank you so much for helping us pull this off. And let me pass the floor on to my dear friend and co-conspirator, Maria Soledad Cisternas.
Yeah, okay. Dear friends, welcome. And The 2030 agenda is based on human rights. Paragraph 67 of the document. In other words, human rights are the heart of sustainable development. Therefore, in the analysis of SDGs, it is necessary to review the situation of human rights within or among the countries in connection with SDG number 10. Multidimensional poverty is aggravated when there are many groups of persons face barriers in the exercise of human rights, facing stereotype, prejudice, harmful practices, exclusion, and discrimination. We cannot speak about sustainable development if there are millions of persons in this situation. The question is there some common barrier in the exercise of human rights for millions of persons? Pandemic has highlighted the gaps in legislation, public policies, measures, services, etc., by the lack of accessibility, affecting millions of persons around the world. You can see, for example, difficulties in the access to the hospitals, healthcare, difficulties in the access to the information and communication, for example, a lack of sign language interpretation, braille, augmentative and alternative forms of communication, etc. During the quarantine, you can see difficulties in the access to the foods, medicine, services, technologies for many persons, and difficulties in the exercise of human rights, such as education and work. The answer of the question will be undoubtedly universal accessibility. Accessibility is the most cross-disciplinary human rights figures on the 21st century. You know, accessibility involves physical environments, transportation, information, communication, technology, services, facilities, and others, both in rural and urban areas. Accessibility is universal because it provides unique conditions for the exercise of human rights and the fulfillment of SDGs for many, many persons with disabilities, 1 billion around the world, but also for older persons, pregnant women, women with their children. At the same time, persons who experience accident with short-term consequences, among others. Accessibility is pillar and bridge for the exercise of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and at the same time for the fulfillment of SDGs, such as well-being, healthy life, education, work, a peaceful society, access to justice, inclusive production, effective institution. Accessibility is a key factor in the eradication of poverty and to revitalize the Global Alliance for Sustainable Development, SDG number 17. Currently, we are speaking about smart cities, but they will be really smart when they are fully accessible for the exercise of all human rights for all persons. It is necessary, it is indispensable, the fulfillment of SDG number 11, make cities and other human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable in connection with two targets about accessibility in transportation and in physical space. At the opening session of the 75th session United Nations General Assembly, the Secretary General underlined the importance of the international cooperation and multilateralism to build a strong recovery to the pandemic. In this line, it is very important to remember the policy brief of the Secretary General emphasizing the importance of accessibility as a pillar for public policies in the future after the pandemic. What are the challenges? To reinforce the inclusive governance through the multilateral political decision-making to catalyze the implementation of universal accessibility. I commented in high-level political forum the importance to create a global big data about accessibility during and after the pandemic, to give a great legacy to humanity to better face other humanitarian emergencies in the future, helping to our communities and the governments to identify the connection among accessibility, human rights, and sustainable development. At least 10 SDGs are in connection with accessibility. It is relevant, the alliance among central governments, local government, business, civil society, and other stakeholders for the full implementation in different ways of the accessibility. And in this moment, I ask, what is the role of the business? In this sense, it is very important to consider the guiding principles for business and human rights, United Nations 2012. In this sense, the support of the business, companies, enterprise to sustainable development can be, first, preventive contributions, omitting harmful behavior. For example, barriers in accessibility as a result of productive process. Second contribution, to reach the political commitment inside the business in order to sustainable development. For example, the companies with full accessibility to push the full employment of the citizens, or inclusive production. For example, the little boxes for the medicines in Braille, full accessible for blind person, good example. The third contribution, the clear leadership of the business in relation to sustainable development. And in this sense, they can channeling and a part of or percentage of their profit in sustainable investment. Undoubtedly, accessibility taking into account the priority to cities for all. The companies return return this sustainable investment through customers enjoying human rights and the respect of their inherent dignity. Finally, this means to understand the needs of our diverse, interactive, and dynamic humanity, leaving no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Special Envoy. It's always important to frame our discussions within the existing commitments and the evolving nature of the march towards the Sustainable Development Goals and the international communities elevated visibility of these issues. But I think that the conversation today is going to dive into how those rights can be made real and how we have a community, as you very much have been helping us build around making these rights real. So I'll transition into what you and I have been doing for the last few years since we launched the global campaign. So if you permit me, I'll jump in to the presentation. So the Global Compact and Campaign on Inclusive and Accessible Cities is a way to mobilize the topics that the Special Envoy talked about. And we've done events all over the world to mobilize commitments from governments and civil society, and really build a community to align and catalyze local responses to the Sustainable Development Goals, collect data, conduct research, disseminate best practices on access and inclusion, identify emerging issues and document lived experiences of people with disabilities, and draw alliances with communities advancing issues for older persons. And ultimately, we really think that creating a knowledge hub or a network of networks to coordinate this work is important. Why? Because over a quarter of the people on Earth face barriers in cities because of aging or disability. There's twice the amount of, two times higher rates of poverty and lower outcomes in education, health, and employment, and $2 trillion of foregone income from excluding people with disabilities from employment. And a lot of these are really issues that fundamentally are shaped by the way we think about, we plan for, and we build cities. Now, what we've done with the campaign is we've identified 3 major pillars or areas to take action. And really, when we're trying to mobilize our mission, which is to transform 100 cities to become more inclusive, accessible, and resilient by 2030, and really having leadership from World Enabled, the UN Special Envoy, UN Habitat, UCLG, and a network of other organizations throughout the world. We want to convene these change makers. We want to collect and disseminate research and data. And then we want to build tools, and all of that based on the 6 principles of the Global Compact, which include non-discrimination, accessibility, participation, inclusive urban policies and programs, capacity building, and data for development. We already have 30 city signatories. 30 cities have signed on to ensuring that these principles form part of the work that they do, and that this isn't just a nice to have, and the way that we build cities, but a must have. And so that's going to be a very important effort, is to continue to make real and provide guidance, technical assistance on these particular principles. Next slide. So what have we done? Just we gathered the leadership of the German government and the city of Berlin to launch this global document with city leaders from around the world. They signed as founding signatories this document, which was developed in collaboration with organizations throughout the world, aligning the sustainable development goals and looking at the inclusion targets at the local level. A year after we launched the campaign, we met in Durban, South Africa, with the world's largest network of cities, United Cities and local governments, at their assembly of local and regional leaders to launch a policy plan and a plan of action on how to create a golden wave of accessibility and mobilize cities from around the world, Barcelona, New York, Sao Paulo, and others to really talk about what they're doing in this effort. And Abu Dhabi, Helsinki, Barcelona, and Almaty and other cities have signed on just earlier this year at the World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi. And next slide. And that just shows you a momentum of how we've been moving forward. I think I'll stop with showing you a little bit of the coming attractions. It's a short video on what we're doing besides the convening and the research, showing you this video that shows what we're doing on capacity building. Now we're going to develop online learning modules and online training curriculum to help the city leaders and the grassroots activists learn about these topics. I'll let Luis dig up the video, but we can also share the link in the chat. There seems to be a little technical issue with the screening of the video. Oh, there it goes.
It's loading, it's loading.
How can we use good design to improve the lives of 1 billion people? And how can we build entire cities that are more accessible, inclusive, and resilient? And how can we ensure that the future is accessible to everyone? I'm Victor Pineda, and I'm passionate about the future of cities.
There are people like me in every city around the world. And the issue is whether or not government and the private sector want to engage with people like Victor and myself.
Now I can see a very positive change in the lives of women with disability when they realized and accepted their disability. They got trainings on gender, on disability, on leadership.
Making sure that disability issues are part of our everyday conversations and decision-making is critical.
Together, we're going to get a greater appreciation of the range of talents, preferences, and experiences of people with disabilities, who may happen to be your neighbors, your friends, your family members, and who may have a lot more to share if only we eliminate the barriers. Those are the learning modules that we hope to launch by December by the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. But you can see that we're moving forward. I want to see the slides on the results of our global survey, but just to let you know that during COVID, when COVID hit, our city leaders around the world really wanted to know what the situation was and what they could do. So we mobilized a set of convenings and launched a global survey on inclusive pandemic responses, and we identified that over 70% of respondents felt that their cities were not doing enough to protect their rights and to ensure that they were discriminated against during pandemic responses. We can share more about the survey in the coming weeks, but it's just an example of how the convenings, the research and then the training modules all come together to provide kind of a base of knowledge to empower folks that are trying to really address these issues. So we can skip over these slides. We will send everybody that registered everybody that registered will send the slide deck so you can learn more about some of the work that we've done. But let me pivot now to our esteemed panel. And really let my good friend and colleague Alice Charles, the lead for cities and urbanizations and infrastructure at the World Economic Forum, moderate our conversation with some of our private sector leaders. Alice, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Victor. And it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to moderate this session. It's funny, when I was looking at some of those photographs, I was like, wow, I was there. So, and I was thinking, when did I first meet Victor? And I first met Victor at what is called Habitat 3. It was the UN summit focused on creating the new urban agenda for cities in Quito, Ecuador. And Victor was very much front and center, trying to make the case for inclusion in the built environment. And what a journey it's been since then. So congratulations, Victor, on everything that you've been doing to, first of all, get the message out there at Habitat 3 and take that through to getting so many cities engaged in the compact. So we're going to have a short discussion, and I won't be able to get to you all who are attending. I see there's more than 90 people attending this evening from right around the world. I won't be able to get to you all to ask your questions, but what I would encourage you to do throughout this discussion is to just slot your questions into the chat, and I'll endeavour to try and ask as many of those as possible. So first of all, from a personal level, this is a subject that's really dear to my heart. Victor knows this. So, you know, I grew up in Ireland with a brother with cerebral palsy, and I seen how difficult it was for him to navigate the built environment. And actually that led to my career in urbanism as an urban planner. So, you know, I guess we all have a story that gets us to where we are in life, and that's certainly mine. But I think that tells us that there are people near and dear to us, as well as many of us who have all kinds of disabilities, and those disabilities can be permanent or those disabilities can be temporary. And indeed, each and every one of us will experience some kind of disability throughout our life. So that's why it's so important that we design cities, and I'm also going to say towns and villages, because actually cities can often be better at designing space for all than towns or villages because they've got more resources. So generally, we need to design our urban environments to meet the needs of all people. So to talk to that subject around the role of the private sector in creating more accessible and inclusive built environments and cities, we have a wonderful panel. We have Christopher from Google, who's the head of accessibility and programs. Sorry, let me just get your correct title, Christopher. So you're the head of accessibility programs and disability inclusion at Google. We have Neil, who's the head of accessibility and digital inclusion at Atos. And we have Miye, who is the access and inclusion lead from Arab. So maybe just to get the ball rolling, can I just ask Neil in the first instance, what you think the private sector can do to support accessibility in the built environment?
Am I still on mute?
No,
good. Okay, excellent. So yeah, we were joking before we started. That's the phrase of 2020. So I think that the private sector has a huge role to play, especially as quite often governments are engaging the private sector to do the work on their behalf. So we provide as an IT integrator and service provider lots of things for government, whether that be sort of IT infrastructure or things like ticketing systems, access to transport, websites, etc. The life of the city these days is organized through the internet. Whether that be event booking or engaging with your city council or your infrastructure or the people that run it, that's done online. Most of the time that's digital, and most of the time the private sector are the ones that are delivering that on behalf of government. So I think we definitely have a role to play there, but we are also working with other private sector companies to build products and services that people are using that are being consumed in cities and now on the periphery of cities as we all migrate to the edges to try and work from home, etc. So I think we have a huge role to play, and we have a responsibility as well, because I think that it shouldn't just be governments that are committed to the SDGs. It's really important that private organizations are also committed, and as someone that works directly to our global head of CSR, we're committed to working towards the SDGs and taking a sort of sustainable approach to accessibility. And sustainable cities need to be ones that are socially sustainable as well as environmentally sustainable. So these things go hand in hand, and that's where accessibility comes into play.
And can you tell us specifically just some of the work that your company is doing in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are very much in the space of providing services. So if you want to book tickets on a train, you do that through us or through our partners. The transport infrastructure, the whole sort of reporting and back end. So the flows of people, understanding how people are doing this. I'm particularly interested in working with partner organizations. So we work with startups. We have an accelerator program, and I'm working to bring on board small organizations that are doing stuff in the accessibility space. So we work with Welcome, who are a small company that actually help people register their needs so that you can book in advance and get welcomed at a venue, for example, where they know what your disability related needs are. They know in advance. It sends them a message when you get close by, and so you can have a good customer service experience. There are other things around mobility as a service that we're looking at, and then looking at all of the sort of healthcare stuff. We work with the healthcare providers, and we provide a lot of sort of work for some of the hospitals, which are vitally important in keeping cities healthy. So and of course in those spaces you need to be thinking about accessibility. You need to be thinking about how people understand stuff, and actually from my point of view, I'm also interested in wayfinding, because I have a hidden disability. In fact, I've got a couple of hidden disabilities. I'm dyslexic and ADHD. And so actually, for me, understanding how to navigate around the city, understanding how to interface with the city, knowing what I need to do to be able to access the products and services is super important. So I work on a number of projects in that space too.
And you've actually raised a really good point. There's so many different types of disabilities. So how are you developing solutions to meet those different needs?
Well, a lot of that goes through consultation. So you have to work with the community. So we spend a lot of time actually working with the community. We, for example, where we're working to design services for government, we do a lot of user research. We interviewed, I think, something like 1,200 people when we were doing the stuff for the pensioner bonds in the UK. So that kind of that kind of in-depth research about how people use products and services and across age groups and ability groups and different ethnic groups is really important, because quite often, when we're starting to use AI to determine how we deliver services, if we're not using inclusive data sets, if we're not making sure that we've understood the needs of these different user groups, then we're going to fail them. And there's an awful lot that we still need to learn about inclusive cities. There's loads and loads of exciting stuff coming, but one of the roles that I think our company plays is as a systems integrator. We actually act on behalf of as a stakeholder in this. So we are both providing services, but we're also consuming services, and we're influencing the people in our supply chain to make sure that they understand that this is something that is required as well. So a large part of what we do is actually about convening. We convene organizations around the topic of accessibility, and Christopher will know that that it's a wide group that we want to convene with.
So you and Christopher regularly work together then?
But so we're on that path. We've started this journey. Yes.
Excellent. And just before I turn to Christopher, do you think there's any unique societal characteristics now that's bringing the issue of accessibility and inclusion really to the fore?
So yes, so COVID has definitely changed people's perceptions about capabilities of flexible working. That's going to have a profound impact on cities because of the fact that people are now migrating to the suburbs and to the countryside. So we're going to have to rethink our spaces, but we're also going to have to rethink our office spaces. And a lot of the technologies that we've used in terms of accessibility can also be used in terms of keeping us safe, in terms of reducing viral spread. So, touchless interfaces, using things like mid-air haptics, using speech interfaces, etc. All of these things which you start to embed into the fabric of your offices and your buildings can help with social distancing as well as help with accessibility.
Absolutely, it's such an opportunity. Actually, Victor and I often talk about this, now that a lot of cities are focused on a green recovery, there's actually an opportunity to build in added co-benefits in terms of inclusion and health. So it's great to hear you raise that. If I could turn to Christopher at Google. So you're the head of accessibility programs and disability inclusion at Google. And whilst earlier we were talking about your earlier career in music, you're doing an amazing job in Google. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Google is doing to develop and share research or data in terms of accessibility in the built environment?
Sure. First, I want to thank you, thank Victor, thank Caroline for the opportunity to come and present. This is a really important topic, and I really appreciate the chance to share with what we're doing. Google's company mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And this is something that we take seriously. We even have accessible in the mission statement. But what's important is it's not just the world's digital information. We also want to take information about the world and make it more accessible. If you think about, say, Google Maps, we have a platform here that has a 99% coverage of the world. Now, mind you, that 1% is a very, very long tail, but there's a lot of relevant, local, valid information, and we have 25 million daily updates for accurate real-time data. So there's a lot of data here, and these are really impressive statistics. And this is information that is available to anyone through our Google Cloud platform. But what's interesting to me is, and this is the area for collaboration with the public-private collaboration, is how do we create more real-time services for information so it can be disseminated to everyone in whatever platform that they want to use. So say, for example, you're looking at, you're in the metro and the elevator's broken. Is there a way for a city or a town to let the cloud knows, so Apple and Google and Microsoft can share this information with our people. So people know how to plan their lives and how to take trips and how to survive the world that's around them, which is changing dynamically and constantly. There's no way that a company, no matter how big you are, can do all of this individually. It takes a real close collaboration, understanding what's important, why it's important, and how to share it, and do this in a way that is agnostic to the platform that you're talking about. It is just as important that Apple Maps and Google Maps have the same information, and let us compete in terms of the quality of the presentation and the accessibility of the presentation, and just who has the best user experience. Let us compete on that. Don't let us compete in terms of who has the best data, because then someone always loses.
Yeah. And what types of data, so you mentioned mapping, for example, what types of data is Google currently leveraging, and what types of data are you hoping to leverage in the future to inform accessibility and inclusion?
Speaking within the context of the cities, just as a slice, with this data, and there's two experiences that we can provide. For example, there is one that's called detailed voice guidance. Now, there's the normal voice guidance that many people can have, but if you're blind or low vision, the quality information and the kind of information that you're going to need is different. So what we do is we co-design with people in the community and figure out their use cases and what's important and what are the problems that they're trying to solve. And with this, we created a different mode within Google Maps with this detailed voice guidance. So let me just quote I wrote this down because I didn't want to get it wrong. Wakana Sugiyama is one of the designers of this feature. And she says, as I take my journey, Google Maps will proactively let me know that I'm on the correct route, the distance until my next turn, and the direction that I'm walking in. As I approach large intersections, I get a heads up to cross with added caution on a busy intersection. And then if I accidentally leave my route, I'll get a spoken notification that I'm being rerouted. This dynamic rerouting is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the need of this public-private partnership. Google Maps data is available to anyone through the Google Cloud Platform. Anyone who wants to have access to it, you can get access to the APIs. Another piece of data that we have, again, within the slice of cities, is what we call accessible places. So right now, Google Maps has wheelchair accessibility information for more than 15 million places around the world. And that's doubled since 2017 because we have local guides providing real-time information. And we have 120 million of them. So there's a lot of information coming in, but you also want to make sure the information is valid. You want to make sure it's accurate. We have collaboration with businesses, and we wanted to share this information so anyone can have access to it. So if you're on the metro and you want to go to a restaurant, one, is my elevator going to work? And two, are there stairs that go in? Or three, can I even use the bathroom? This is information that is really important and is available on our platform. But I want to posit that this is information that is best served in a public-private conversation so everyone can have access to it.
And I assume you have to localize and contextualize that information so that it's relevant to each and every place in the world. In that regard, I'm wondering about the level of coverage that you have across the globe.
Yeah, so the most recent stats I was able to find shows a 99% coverage of the world. So that's pretty deep. And we have hundreds of millions of local guides providing local changes. Here's a new photograph of this place. This place has accessible bathrooms. So we're crowdsourcing this information. We can't just send the Google Maps cars around and get all the data for everything. It's a collaboration of the people on the ground sharing what's important to them, making sure that other people can benefit from that information.
Wow, that level of coverage is really impressive, 99%. But let's get that 1% over the line in the next short while.
That 1% is going to take a long time because everything changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've been talking to date about technology, but I notice a lot of questions are coming in that relate to the design, build of cities. So the hard infrastructure, if you like, of cities, which is the perfect segue to bring in Mie, who is the Access and Inclusion Lead from Arup. So first of all, Arup is extremely well known. It's a very innovative company. You're known also in the sector because not only are you leaders in terms of the design and build of cities and buildings, but you're also owned by your staff. So you have a very different ethos. So you're renowned for what you give back to society. But in relation to what you're doing specifically in this particular area, I'd like to know how your organization is driving innovation and technology and reach in the area of accessibility and inclusion.
Wonderful. So I think a lot of what we do, and Neil and Christopher have kind of already kind of spoken about in terms of that collaboration, in terms of that you know, making sure that things align and making sure that we've got that diversity and that representation in terms of what we do. So I think there's two aspects to that I think are, you know, important that we do that's really important in the process as a general thing. So the first thing is obviously thinking about the sort of internal facing aspect of it, thinking about what we're doing as an organization, making sure that we've got that representation in the teams that we form to think of these solutions as well. And there's a particular example that I think I overuse to illustrate this, but I think it was a couple of years ago, there was a soap dispenser, an automated soap dispenser that was designed by a team, and when it was launched, when they'd finished designing and they'd actually launched the product, they discovered at that point that the automated sort of a feature of it, that the function didn't recognize different skin tones, darker skin tones. And I think that's a really, it's an awful thing to have happened, but I think that illustrates really, really well why it's really important to have that diversity within your teams, within the people that you consult with, and making sure that that whole process is inclusive, because otherwise you're designing for and you're testing against a very restricted population. And again, going back to what Christopher was saying about the data that's available as well, if by having that data and that current data sort of reflecting how we're actually designing, it means that the averages, that all the regulations and the best practice guidance documents that are available across different regions, all the averages that are assumed within those regulations, anyone that's an outlier to that, it just isn't covered. So by having that data and making sure that we're incorporating that data within our processes when we're designing, it just means that that solution can start to think about what we actually need as a community.
And you talked there about the importance of having diversity in teams if you're going to address the issue of accessibility and inclusion. Can you talk to what that looks like in your team in ARA?
Yeah, of course. So in terms of when it comes to sort of inclusion and sort of disability, we're in the process of working with Value 500 in terms of actually developing a global plan to set out our vision and to set out actions in relation to sort of our organisation, to make sure that sort of our offices, as an example, are identifying where the opportunities are to maximize accessibility, to make sure that anyone coming to visit our offices, to collaborate with us, anyone coming to our offices to work for us as well, that they're able to actually use that space to participate in exactly the same way as anyone else in the organization, and that there's that sort of unfettered structure as well, so that people are able to have the same opportunities across different regions, across different offices within our organization, and again sort of connecting with the staff sort of population as well, making sure that we're actually speaking with our employees and connecting and making sure that there's that diversity within the teams that we're actually inputting into those design solutions as well, is a really important part of what we try to do.
And just one final question for you. So ARIF works obviously with cities all around the world. It works with real estate contractors, etc. So you are now working hard with cities around the world who are very focused on building back better, or green and just recovery, as we're hearing from C40, and I know you work very closely with C40 as well. So how are you advising them to ensure that that accessibility and inclusion is part of those strategies to build back better or have a green and just recovery?
I think, and I can't remember. I think it was something that that was mentioned earlier on in the discussion about you know, the opportunities that have arisen. I think it might have been something that you mentioned, Neil, about the opportunities that you know, that well, the fact that COVID has sort of exacerbated or brought to the forefront some of the inequities that exist in our societies, and as a result of that, identify then the opportunities that we can really embrace and try to readdress as part of that rebuilding. And I think a particular example that pops into my head is, you know, there's a big push. Again, it was something that Neil had mentioned about the fact that, you know, with flexible working, people are potentially sort of moving further out from the cities because of the fact that they're not needing to be in the city centres in order to commute to get to particular services. And through that, then looking at how people actually connect within the neighborhoods, thinking about sort of walkable cities, thinking about the role of sort of more sustainable means of sort of active travel as well. That there's lots there that we can engage and use within that to connect different sectors within the city. And again, the project that kind of springs to mind is we've been working in collaboration with a charity called Sustrans in the UK, thinking about how we can make cycling more inclusive. And again, this is absolutely the opportunity now to actually really embrace that, given that people are wanting to, or you know, given that cycling is something that is at the forefront again of what governments are wanting to do to encourage people to get back to work, to get back to sort of different things within our cities.
Fabulous. I know that we haven't got much time for questions, but I've seen a stream of questions coming in from our very engaged audience. We have a question, and I'm not sure who wants to take this, but we have a question coming in. How did the spreading of fake news affect the mobility of disabled people? Does anyone want to take that?
I'm going to have a stab at it, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
so,
go for it, Neil.
So I think that there is a lot of stuff talking about the casting aspersions about what we can and can't do. And I think that it's difficult for people to really appreciate that many people with disabilities are very much capable. Follow the social model. If we're given the tools, then we can do all of this stuff. But that's not necessarily what people read when they're in their own filter bubble. And in fact, it's not even fake news, it's mainstream media quite often is portraying the disabled population in ways that are unfavorable. You know, we see this quite frequently, and I think that is changing. There are commitments from some of the mainstream media to get better at this, but it's not just fake news. There's you know, just lack of visibility of disabled people around the world in mainstream news, mainstream drama. All of these kind of things affect people. On boards, in business. They may be there, they're not visible, right? So we know that age and disability are interrelated. We also know that, you know, quite often in order to reach the board, you need to have reached a certain age. The likelihood is that those two intersect, but the likelihood of anyone sat on the board actually coming out and talking about their disability is pretty low. We need those role models so that we can change people's views. and really then it becomes a case of people actually taking positive steps to question stuff themselves.
Yeah.
You know, follow people that you don't agree with, so that you don't create a filter bubble, because everybody is likely to get into a reinforcing filter bubble if they're not careful. And also, you know, don't allow switch off the algorithms if you can. So switch off the Twitter curated news. Don't click on the YouTube video recommendations. Search for something that you want to find out. You're much more likely to get something that doesn't take you down the QAnon rabbit hole that way.
Sounds
Open
like you just
yourself up.
watched the.
I've watched.
Sounds like
I've
you
watched
watched
the
The Social Dilemma.
but equally, I've been very much thinking about this stuff before watching The Social Dilemma. So yeah, absolutely.
So
If I could add one.
Yeah, go first.
I just want to add one thing. I think the other part of this is that there's a breakdown of trust of the institutions. And when you lose a trust in institutions, you're less willing to reach out for help if you need it, or you're less willing to contribute if they need help. So you have this breakdown of trust at multiple levels, and it impacts the people who need the most help the most, because they have the least resources to go out and lobby politicians. They don't have the opportunities to make they don't always have the opportunities to make the changes in the institutions that they need. That's why we need groups and organizations to get together and have these conversations on their behalf. But the more you don't trust people around you, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whatever changes you into being against someone else, that's a further breakdown of the society. And this misinformation just makes this faster and worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm conscious that we're running very short on time. So, and we have Caroline and Victor who wants to come in. But I just wanted to thank you all for participating in this discussion. And I apologize to the audience that we didn't get to more of your questions. I think a critical thing we heard from Christopher at the very beginning was there is a need for public-private cooperation to address this issue of accessibility and inclusion in cities. And as we heard later on from both Neil and from Mia, there's an opportunity to harness the opportunity that COVID has presented us with to solve multiple problems, and that includes solving for inclusion and accessibility in cities. What I want to remind you all is there is a call for action to support the Cities for All initiative, which Victor is leading, so please do get in touch with him. And I want to hand the floor over to Caroline Casey from Valuable 500, who's doing amazing work in terms of trying to get diversity on boards, etc. And if you haven't seen Caroline on CNBC Finding Solutions yet, please do watch it back. She was absolutely excellent. Caroline, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Alice. I'm just really mindful of the huge amount of questions. And I'm wondering, is there any way that we can capture these questions and follow up with them? Because I think this is the energy, is to get these questions out here and talking. So firstly, I just want to say a huge thank you to Victor and his extraordinary network. I'm part of it on WhatsApp, and seeing that influence grow. And I think there's something for me, when would this conversation have happened a few years ago, guys? Like, I do think this is the decade of disruption, and a decade of, and that's from, it's an ATOS colleague actually talked about that. And I think that is brilliant. We're talking about a decade of disruption and a decade of determined collaboration. And what I think is, and I really do call out for as many of us to get behind the Cities for All, because as the founder of the Valuable 500, we are seeing the collective influence leads to change. The catalyzing effect when we bring great numbers of people together, sharing, collaborating, innovating, figuring it out, failing, it's collectively we will make this happen. It's, imagine if we get one organization doing something big, but imagine 500 cities doing something small, and that is so much greater in its impact. So I just want to, there's a few points that I want to pull out. When I hear Neil and Christopher and Miye speaking, first of all, you're all valuable 500 companies. You're also individuals and leaders within these organizations. But for me, they're all very passionate. Everybody's very passionate, and they've been given the space and the scope within their organizations to bring and lead that change. Leadership is not just from the top, which I'm very passionate about, but it's within the organizations. And that's what we're trying to do in our cities as well. It's not just the leaders of our cities, but to enable the citizens within the cities to contribute. There's three big things that came out of this for me. The importance of the private sector. They're doing the work that governments want to do. They have huge influence in their procurement processes and their supply chains, which Neil spoke to. I really do recommend when you see an organization like ATOS reach out to Welcome, why do not all organizations work in collaboration with Welcome? So that influence can be exponential. When we hear from Christopher, and it has come across in a lot of the conversations, is co-collaborating with the community. Co-collaborating with the community is so important, and do not underestimate that. Not just one, but the whole breadth of humanity, whether it's about data, the built environment, or process and systems. Miye spoke to the importance of bringing that intelligence into their organization and their teams so that they can identify the opportunities. Because how can we serve and build these environments if we do not have the intelligence? I am smiling at you, Miye, because the partnership you have with Sustrans around inclusive cycling, I am so grateful to that personally as a visually impaired person, and everybody is cycling around these cities. Please help. But it just shows you that what might be a win for some may not be for another. But at least we must be talking about how our different ways of being within our cities are. I want to end by a beautiful term by the special envoy, which I loved, is about dynamic humanity. And Victor speaks about creating not only more inclusive cities, but resilient cities. In this time of the pandemic, the companies that we saw were more resilient or are more resilient within this pandemic time were the agile companies, the inclusive companies, the companies that really looked at inclusion right throughout their business. They were the ones that survived and thrived. And so if we can learn from that and bring that into our cities. And so what I really look and hope is, as this decade of disruption comes, is that the private sector consistently collaborates as we build our systems together, because we're all in this together, not in our own little bucket, in our own silos, but together, how can we influence each other? Because actually, there are so many competing agendas that at least we need to be having, can we not have more inclusive conversations in whatever sector that we exist in? So I just want to acknowledge the huge work of the World Economic Forum in giving the platform both to Cities for All and the Valuable 500. You have brought us together. I want to acknowledge the huge work of our colleagues in the Valuable 500 companies and thank them. But also, I want to say a huge thank you to Victor Pineda, because who is equally as much as a troublemaker as I am. And can I just say, the next time we do this, could we give at least 40 minutes for questions to the floor, because that's where we're going to learn. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline. We are going to have a blog that develops for these conversations. We're going to answer all the questions in the chat. Our community is so engaged from all parts of the world and really sharing their knowledge, and we need to benefit from that collective knowledge. I think that the conversation is continuing with other partners. I want to make a big shout out to Doha Debates, who's been working with the Secretary General and other partners to put together this learning curriculum, these learning modules, which we want to launch on December 3rd. So we want to ensure that this is an open dialogue and a platform. We have 3 more events. We have a MindSpark event coming up, and then a launch of the G20 Smart City Alliance. That's going to be a Smart City Alliance that's launching policies. And with G3ICT and with the World Economic Forum, then we're going to launch the first global smart city policy on accessibility. to really standardize or create some kind of a benchmark for accessibility within smart city programs. We have a roadmap with the U20 and the G20, as well as the UN Conference of States Parties in December. So a lot of activities planned, but I'm most excited about it responding to both, Atos, Google, and Arab's perspectives about the public-private partnership to bring our collective learning together under the data hub that we want to create with the Cities for All and UC Berkeley and the Special Envoy. We'll really be able to amplify and catalyze the work. And again, this isn't something that it's only being done by us. It's a huge honor to facilitate the conversation. But it's like you said, Caroline, it's 500 cities, 500 leaders, 500 companies, 500 mayors taking one step towards eliminating, unnecessary barriers. And we don't need to rebuild a utopic city. We don't build a city with no barriers. We just have to make sure that the cities that we have do better, and together we'll be able to do that. So I'm really excited about what lies ahead. We do need a lot of support. We do need a lot of help. If you know of like-minded allies that want to sponsor our work or want to be part of this in terms of lending capacity or staffing, we would love to sort of engage in that conversation as well. So we'll leave the my contact info in the chat. Everybody in this panel that registered will get a link to the presentation today, as well as the recording. This was live streamed on YouTube. The conversation continues in the WhatsApp groups. We have regional WhatsApp groups in the Asia Pacific, the Middle East, and North Africa. In Latin America, you just take a photo of this QR code and you can continue the conversation with us. We've shared over 5,000 resources over the last 6 months to the community. So this isn't a one-off event. This is a continuous decade of disruption, destroying the barriers and disrupting the status quo. So thank you all for being part of this and helping us advance. Is there anything else, Luis? I think the most important is just knowing that with the special envoy, this is very much kind of her leadership of moving this forward. And I wanted to thank her for also convening us. The special envoy and her leadership is really what's helping this also have a global perspective.
And a big thank you to Alice.
A thank you to all of you. It wouldn't be possible without you all. Thank you to every single participant. And Caroline is so right. I got to so few of your questions. We will endeavor to get to more of them next time. Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and lovely to see you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Victor, and thank you, Alice. It's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
It was so lovely to hear that accent. Oh, it's beautiful.
You might be biased.
Oh, I am biased, but it's lovely. Victor, I hope that was okay for you. And if there's anything that we can do to help to follow up, will you please let me know?
Brilliant. Yes. I'll share with you what are some of the other events that are coming up as well. We have a couple more events. And it's Urban October is a month of a lot of activities. So we'll just keep you updated and we can find more alignment. Caroline, thanks.
Yeah, I know that we are going to be having WEF wants us to have a combined call soon so that we can see, making sure that we constantly are helping each other in the best way we can. So if that's helpful and useful for me to get, because I think this is really important. we can get more Christophers and Neils and BAs and all of that. I think that's how we can, and it's brilliant to have this conversation, because this has been a while. I mean, I'm exhausted after a day, and I was really interested in this. So it would have been, you know, to get more conversation going would be fantastic. They're great people and they're engaged.
You know,
so.
And all over the world. I mean, they're literally calling it, or our communities calling it from all over the world. So it's
and
great.
your WhatsApp groups are just fantastic.
Yeah, like amazing.
Yeah, the amount of valuable information that I get from those WhatsApp groups.
I know, it's like a total resource. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But Victor, please reach out to me if there's anything that we need and we can do. Okay, you promise?
I promise. That's kind of amplifies sort of something like Alice was saying. If we can find some people that can donate 5% time to somebody's FTE just one day a month, I think that kind of thing.
Well, let's see how we can do that. We will. I think these amplifying groups, these big collectives is what we really need now, and then making those collectives cross over with each other.
Yeah, and also Sinead Burke as well.
She's amazing. She's a ledge. She's a ledge.
Yeah, I think the three of you should definitely be working together. You know, sort of your voice is stronger collectively, and yes, you're coming at it from different angles. But now is the time to really get the message. You know, when people are talking about inclusion right now, I'm hearing so often people are talking about racial inclusion or gender inclusion and not enough about disability. So, and the three of you, yes. And you know, one of the things I was thinking about just when Christopher and Neil were talking, and because they were sort of making points that were making me think about education, how, you know, children who are growing up with a disability are often in and out of hospital getting treatment. You know, their education suffers. They don't get the same opportunities then to sort of rise to the top. And my own brother is exactly this case, you know, and yet he's one of the most intelligent people you'd ever meet, but he hasn't had the book learning to the same degree as other people. So they're not getting those opportunities to get on boards and, you know, to get to senior positions in business or to get on boards. And that really needs to be addressed in,
I agree.
In the next number of years.
Okay, well, we will be unstoppable. But it was lovely to meet you and see you. And I'm giving you a hug, both. And we'll come again together soon, yeah?
Absolutely. See you all. Bye-bye to everyone. See you, Victor. Have a nice day, Victor. It's early in the day for you.
Yes.
I want to go to a garden, botanical garden.
Oh, excellent. Enjoy that. Now that you're smoke-free, it obviously wasn't very pleasant for a little while then.
It wasn't, but it's nice now. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think I'll stick around this room just to see if any of the other people that stayed around have any questions.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
See if anyone's any questions. Okay.
Thank you, Alice.
See you, Louise. See you, Victor. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, dear.
Bye. Bye.
So I know we have Tiffany and Sandra and Heidi Alaskri. And I saw Benjamin Darn was here also.
Yeah. Hiroshi's in the call too.
Oh, Hiroshi, what did you guys think? What do you think of the event? Any feedback from our colleagues?
It's Tiffany. I thought it was great. So right now, I mean, I have talked with WEF about trying to see if we can get disability better included on the agenda. And I think what I've noticed, at least in my time at Davos and other forum events, is that oftentimes when it's a disability specific event, it's harder to get, I think, the people that I would really want in the room. So I think I appreciated that you had like the private sector represented on the panel.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And thank you for promoting the event too.
Tiffany, let's connect also to make sure we have kind of a mapping, because I know that even the International Disability Alliance and IDA and others, I think there's several of us that are now having conversations about this issue within the World Economic Forum ecosystem. So maybe we should have like a bit of a disability cluster conversation around who all the different focal points are within WEF. So we can have a call about that, Luis. That would be helpful. Anybody else on the call want to say something about this or about upcoming things? Share ideas for the future. Okay.
Heidi's in the call.
No, Heidi's usually not shy. Heidi's usually not very shy. There she is.
Heidi, how are you?
We miss you, Heidi. We can't hear you. Your microphone is off, but we see your beautiful face. It's good to see you. Well, I think that I'm excited just by the momentum that we've had. There's some really exciting things happening in India, also with our colleague Parul, in terms of training and in terms of mobilizing some of our efforts with regional representatives and regional conversations. So I want to continue to sort of see that move forward and developing more of these hubs in different parts of the world. But anyway, just thank you all for being part of this beautiful community. And we'll have another event. Please, can you tell us what the other events are?
The other event, MindSparks event tomorrow, and in the follow-up, we'll try to do the follow-up as fast as we can, but there will be announcement about the event tomorrow that is not related to Dr. Pena is going to be a speaker in a conversation, but we're going to probably share it on social media. But about the U20, we'll be sharing more information about that in the follow-up email, I guess. Yeah, but then please join the WhatsApp groups for more information as well, and we'll send the slides over email follow-up, so you can use the slides to get access to the WhatsApp groups, and the video will be available, so you can share it as well. Yeah, and stay connected. Please send us more information. As we mentioned, we took notes of the chat and the questions. We'll make sure that gets weave into the blog on op-ed that we're gonna work with our friends of Doha Debates. So we're gonna try to promote that over different channels, and you will, all the questions, all the discussions help us to be better platform for everybody to keep driving these discussions across sectors. And we're happy with the event. It was great. Thank you so much. I think it's time to go.
Yeah. Just want to recognize Emil, who talked a lot about neurodiversity in the chat, and I think that's really important. And then sending everybody the links for the WhatsApp groups in the follow-up email, right?
And please send send us emails about what you think about the event too, because that way it helps us be better for new events.
Great. Thanks, guys.